I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. As always, thanks for joining me. So as we talk about change, I know change is hard, right? Especially if it's thrust upon us. So please go to my website. I have a free gift for you. It's my communication style assessment. It gives you insight into your natural communication superpowers. And it also provides some information about the challenges that come with those superpowers, as well as your blind spots. So you get two reports, one, your superpowers, one, your lowest style, which is our blind spots. And that will help you navigate change, I hope, a smidge easier. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA for communication style assessment. Again, my gift to you, and I hope it helps you navigate change a little bit easier. My quote today, of course, I have to start with my motivational quote, is by Bernhard Shaw. And he says, "A life spent making mistakes is not only honorable, but more useful than a life spent doing nothing." Now, I was recently asked why I work so hard and why on earth would I expand my business, seeing that, oh, by the way, I just turned 60, right? November of 2021. Now, I had to pause for a second when I was asked this because I didn't really fully understand the question. And after hesitating, I responded is, why wouldn't I expand my business and do XYZ? Because I still love what I'm doing, and I still have a ton to offer in the business world. So while I think people are slowing down, I don't know, I keep ramping up because it's my own creativity, right? It's my own energy. It's my own value that I feel I bring. Now, instead of slowing down, I want to continue to expand, share, and do all of these things because we're now in a global economy. I feel like it's the most wonderful time to be alive. So I believe we have options in life and the choices we make to live a default life from cradle to grave, or to create a more fulfilled life like I choose to, maybe even an exponential life, which is where I choose to live, right? And I choose that every day. I'd love to see everybody play in the space between that default and fulfilled. And if you're not fulfilled, today my guest and I are speaking directly to you. So my guest is Dr. Robin Odegaard. Now, Robin is a former competitive beach volleyball player turned high performance psychologist with continuing education from the Center for Nutrition Studies at Cornell. She gets to work with people who understand that life is messy, but that doesn't have to get in the way of achieving amazing success. She absolutely adores the intellectual stimulation of a good conversation, reads astrophysics for fun, my kind of girl, and spends her spare time training her dog, Nebby, to do circus tricks. So you can see my friend is multidimensional. Robin, thank you so much for being on and sharing your time with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to get to talk to you, recorded even.
Yay, this is for posterity. Our brilliant conversation will live on into infamy, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, because I get asked that a lot, especially as I'm entering this next decade, of why do you work? Like, why aren't you slowing down? And I really pause every time I'm asked that, because I think, well, where did that come from? And clearly it's their own stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But what is, and why do people settle for that? And I know, quote unquote, guys, I'm doing the air quotes for you listening on Apple Podcasts. What is the default life? Why do we settle there?
Well, some people just are happy. They're content. They don't want to work hard. Like, there are people who are very happy to get up, go to work, do their job, come home, have dinner, watch some TV, go to bed, get up, go to work. And you know what? Who are we to judge them? If they want to live that life, fine, okay.
Agreed. Sure.
But there are people like you and I who are like, nope, I want more than that. And it gets messy when you decide you want that created life or that exponential life. It's messy, but that's okay. That's what makes life joyous.
What do you think are pivotal moments, right, that could cause someone to decide, like, okay, I don't want to live my default life. I hear Connie and Robin talking, and I want that exponential life. What causes someone to kind of have that shift?
I think there are personality traits. There's something about some people where they're just like, nope, I'm here to do more. And I want my brilliance to be shared with the world. And I've got to figure out how to do that. And what was it for you? What made you make that shift from, yeah, I could go be a waitress and just live a default life and that'll be fine for me, to being who you are? Why did you decide to be more?
Well, I can answer that really simply. When I started my business 20 years ago, Robin, I had two babies at home, but the company, I was in banking at the time, right? Doing financial sales. They were through merger manias, and it was like every 6 months. So I remember coming home and I didn't want to work for the company that had bought out my company. And I said to my husband, can't work for them. So a pivotal moment, right? I have to make a choice. And he said, well, what are you thinking? And I said, I really want to get fired. And I had been with the bank for about 13 years. So I had a really nice package, and I was an executive. So I had a nice package. I said, I just can't do this anymore. I need to be on my own. I want control of my time. I want control of my money. I want to control going to Mother Help in the school with the kids and being able to work at 10 o'clock at night if I choose. I want to create my life. And it's funny because that was 20 years ago. Now there's so much talk about mindset. I have to be honest, I didn't think about what's going to fulfill me at that moment. That's what I needed. And I guess I'm decisive. I don't know. But that was clear for me at that moment. Did that make sense?
Yeah. So for some people, just like you, it's like, this life isn't working, so let me do something different. So that's definitely a pivotal moment. For other people, it's just, you know what? I think I have more. I think I have more to offer, and this is working, but it's not fulfilling. And so that's what launches them. I think it's different for everyone. Yeah. We're so individual.
Yeah. And you said it, living a default life, if that's what you choose, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I don't know, in your work, when you're with clients, do you find that often, well, probably if they're hiring you and working with you, they've made a decision, but do you find some people you meet give you the old, I don't have a choice, I have to stay wherever they are, whether it's a job, a marriage, et cetera? Do you hear that a lot?
I don't hear it a lot, because you're right. The people who choose to work with me are the people who choose to make a choice, right? Yeah. I mean, and that's redundant, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
But there are people, I have talked to people who say, I don't have a choice. I did have a guy hire me once. It's been a few years ago, and I should have never taken him on as a client, because now I would not accept him as a client. I just didn't have the ability back then to say, he hated his work. He hated his work. But he felt like he didn't have a choice, but he also wasn't willing to take that step to make something different. And if you aren't willing to take that scary moment and go, okay, I'm going to launch, here it goes, then yeah, live your default life and find joy in it.
And that's the point. It's okay. Find the joy. Don't be miserable. I think that's the piece, because, and I tell my kids this, if they say, I can't, I hate that word can't, if they've never tried it before. Now, if they've tried it and they really couldn't do it, I'm like, okay, cool. Don't ever have to do it again. But when they say, oh, I can't do that. And I think, have you tried it? And they're like, well, no. And I go, now try it. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it or love it, but you might end up loving it. What if you really choose that I can do it, but I really don't get any joy in this? Now you're choosing consciously to say, I don't want to do that versus I can't do that. And I know that's so subtle, but that when they were little, Robin, I would say the word can't does not exist in this household. You can try it and choose not to, but don't tell me you can't when you've never done it before, because I feel like that's those boundaries. And I think humans, we do that of, oh, what if I'm not good at that? I better not try that. So fear creeps in right? Fear creeps in for me. Fear creeps in for you. We're human. So I think that's what happens too, but choice. I like how you said that. Choose to find joy. If you choose to not make a change, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah. And I have a rule in my business that if you come to me 3 times complaining about the same thing, you need a therapist, not a coach. Yes. And while I'm qualified to be a therapist, absolutely, it's not what I do for a living. People who come to me are looking to make change. They're looking to solve a problem. They're looking to get somewhere. If all you want to do is complain, and that's fine. I'm not judging that. You're allowed to complain, just not to me.
Yeah. Because you can't help them then.
There's nothing for me to be able to help you in that way.
That's not your zone of genius. And that's not what brings you joy, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. It's choice. Again, you're choosing, right? Nothing, no judgment, just choosing. Talk to me about, how do you define and share what a created life is? Because I love that phraseology.
Yeah. So the question I love to start with when I have a powerful conversation with someone, I love to ask them, what would your most fulfilled life look like? And and most people have no idea. They've never thought about what their most fulfilled life would look like. And if you can talk me through what your most fulfilled life looks like, now we have a goal. Now we have something to create.
I love it. What if they really, because that's a big question. That really is a big question, right?
Yeah.
How do you, if they look at you and say the old deer in headlights, I'm not really sure. How do you take them through some thought processes to find what that, beautiful life or that created life looks like? Can you give some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. We start talking about, well, what does joy look like? What does happiness look like? What do those things mean to you? What do you enjoy in life? What makes you happy? And if you can find those places, if I can get them to talk about, and you can tell, I know you can tell when someone has passion and they light up, and I'm like, oh, there it is. I see it. There it is. And I can point it out.
Yes.
And then we can start getting to, oh yeah, I would be really fulfilled. I remember when I kind of had this epiphany that the thing that would make me feel fulfilled was being able to make a living having interesting conversations. And I said that to my coach at the time, and his response was, nobody's going to pay you just to have an interesting conversation. And I was like, oh, wrong coach for me.
Wow. Serious. Interesting. Again, that was his perspective, right? Not good or bad, right or wrong. It was not adjacent with yours.
Right. Exactly. And so finding that fulfillment, what brings you joy? And sometimes it's stuff that you're like, nobody would ever pay me to do that. People who are really good at creating events and they do it for fun. Like they plan their friends' birthday parties. They're like, oh, nobody would pay me to do that. It's just fun. People will pay you to do that.
Especially working parents, right? They don't have time to put a great party together or whatever. It's funny how we limit ourselves based on our own perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm sure you see this a lot, and I'm sure you have felt this a lot. A lot of times I share something and people look at me like that's the most brilliant thing they've ever heard. And I look at them and I'm like, you knew that. And they go, I didn't know that. And I'm thinking, I thought everybody knew that. Right? Our zones of genius are our zones of genius. So the person saying, it's fun for me to plan parties. Doesn't everybody love to do this? No. People could say, I want pins in my eyes instead of planning a party, with a pony for my kid at the age of 3. Right. Yeah. So again, our zones of genius, we think everybody is naturally good. Do you find that to be limiting belief or unsure of what I could be doing out there? Did that make sense, that question?
I think so.
Yeah.
What I find is that, and this is a mistake I made when I was young, is we use ourselves as a measuring stick. Yeah. And what I mean by that is if it's easy for me, it's easy for everyone. And if it's easy for me and you can't do it, it's not because I have a talent or I'm smart or whatever. It's because you're dumb. And so we make this weird judgment where we make ourselves average. Rather than saying, you know what, at this thing, I'm really, really good. And the other people who can't do it, it's not because they're dumb, it's because they don't like it, or they're just not that talented at that thing. We compare up, right? We compare where we have weakness to other people having strengths, and we compare our strengths to other people like, oh yeah, that's just because they're weak. No, that's not how that works.
We judge a lot, right? We're a society of seeing and then judging. Yeah. How do you address that? Because we all do it and it's a subconscious thing, right? Like I think if I said to someone, do you like judging people? They'd be like, no, I hate that I judge people, right? I hear myself sometimes. And my husband and I laugh because we talk about the judger, right? The saboteur, that's the judger. And I'll say something. He looks at me and he goes, judgment. And I'm like, wow, like where did that come from? That was horrible. I shouldn't be judging or whatever the situation is. Well, why do we do that? Go ahead.
Well, my question is, what's the difference between judgment and discernment?
Discernment is now I'm looking at where I'm asked. When I look at the judgment, I think, where did it come from? And is there validity? I start asking myself questions. And that's where I think I shift to the discernment of And then I do some dig deeping, which my onion is still very big. Unfortunately, those layers just don't seem to go away, Robin, but I'll look at it. Where did it come from? Because is it really a belief? Is it a belief I took on from my parents? Right. So that's the first thing. Like, where did that come from that I made such a judgment call? And then is there validity in that? And then, is it me projecting? So I ask myself a lot of questions, and I think that's the discernment. Did that make sense?
So yes. So judgment has a very emotional, negative connotation to it, right? Discernment, it has more of a learning. Let me understand.
Yes.
And so that's the difference. And so that's where I encourage people to start looking at, where are they using judgment, which is just a super negative decision of this is how it is and whatever. And where are they using discernment of, what can I learn from this? How does this work for me? What would be different for me? And so that question, am I judging or am I discerning?
It's a great question. It's a great way to look at it. And I do think that we can learn from, even when we make those epic mistakes or that have that epic fail. You look at it like, what did you learn? I remember when my kids played hockey, they played through the collegiate level, but they were little. And I remember after a game and they were goalies, by the way, I should say that they were goalies. So we'd get in the car and they would start with, oh, my offenseman did this, my defense did that. They left me hung out to dry, blah, 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 right? Blaming everybody and their brother. And I would say to them, did you play a perfect game? And they like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, so you're not the coach. That's number one. Like, keep your mouth to yourself, because you shouldn't be. I hate when people tell you what you're doing wrong. Meanwhile, they're making, 20 mistakes. So until you're perfect, you don't coach. You have a coach for that. And then the second question I would ask them, did you learn from that goal that went in? And this is what would happen 9 out of 10 times. My angle was off. I was too far in the net. I didn't see it coming. I had an itch, whatever. And then my next comment was, did you learn from that goal? Yes. Then that was a great goal. Don't beat yourself up for it. It was a great goal, because that angle will never be off again, because you lived it. You've made the mistake, learn from it, priceless goal. And
fair, I've made the same mistake more than once though.
And they did too. The next week it would be the same thing. And I'd go and they'd look at me. We know what you're going to say. We still aren't defensemen, right? It's still, they were kids. But I'll tell you now, they look at things differently, because they'll say, this was horrible. But in the next breath, they'll say, but you know what I learned from it? And I go, then that was a great experience. Right. So we get stuck in the negative perspective instead of flipping, like you said, what did I learn? And yes, some of us are late bloomers to the game, right? Or we have to make those mistakes several times. Do you think everyone should live a created life?
No, I think people who want to live a created life should strive for that and do it. And I think that people who want to live a default life should absolutely be free to do that. I don't think that we owe the world our brilliance, even any more than we owe someone a kidney.
True. That is very true. Do you think, or have you seen in your practice, that more and more people are, I'm going to use the word waking up. I don't know if that's the proper term, but waking up thinking, whoa, I do want more. Are you seeing a shift with your clients?
Well, so obviously the people who choose to work with me are the people who want to make that shift. And so I kind of have a self-selection error in that space where, the people who work for me, absolutely, they're wanting big things, they're wanting exponential lives, or they're brave, they're audacious, they want to lay the train tracks, not just drive the train. But does that mean that there aren't people who are happy living their default life? No, it doesn't. It just means that the people who choose to come to me are the people who want to live a created life.
Yeah. And it's interesting, because you can't, what's the old saying? When I was a kid, my mom would say, too many chiefs in the kitchen. Not enough Indians.
You just mixed your metaphors.
But you know what I'm saying? It's inappropriate nowadays, but the point was, everybody wants to lead and be the boss, but sometimes you need to be the worker bee, because whatever you're good at is a support function of the bigger picture. So I think we all
wrong with that.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. There is nothing wrong with finding your space and finding joy in that. Do you remember remember that old show? It was a few years ago where they would have situations that they would record, bad situations. And the mother leaves in a huff, and she leaves they were all actors, but she leaves her kids on the side of the road. And of course there's cameras, so the kids were safe, and she pulls off. And this woman coming by, right, had literally, she was such a lovely woman, but took the kids and loved them. And then the mother came back and she shared with them, and she said, she goes, I'm a bus driver. You had the moment where you couldn't deal with it. So it's okay that you put them on the side, because I found your kid. And she went through, there was no judgment in her assessment. She calmed the children down. She calmed the mom down. Again, didn't know that she was on video. And I thought, Jesus, and the actor said to her, oh, you're a bus driver? And she said, I love what I do. And she was such a joyous woman, simple woman. I love what I do. I love seeing the kids every day. Oh, when I hear them laugh, it's like music on my bus. And I said to my husband, wow, little woman, bus driver, loving her life. We all need to aspire to have that kind of joy and love inside of us, where then you had the flip side of people screaming at the mother, putting the kids behind them, right? Again, that show is remarkable to see humans and how we respond to different stimuli and situations and how we judge it. And I'll never forget that. I was like, I want to be like the bus driver, to be so joyous and find music and laughter and all of these beautiful things. It's a choice, right? It goes back to being a choice.
Yeah, you get to find joy in your life, and I don't get to judge that. It's that simple. Although humans love to be judgy, and we love to tell people how to live their lives. Aren't we all so good at telling other people how their lives are broken while we completely ignore the chaos in our own?
Absolutely, because it's easier. And here's the other thing too, Robin, and I know you see this. It's so much easier to see someone else's situation with clarity, that it's easier for you to almost come up with a solution because you're not emotionally charged by it. But when you're in the throes of angst or whatever, or a big decision or financial distress, whatever it is, loss of job, et cetera, you're coming from a very emotionally charged place. It's hard to see the forest from the trees. So I think that's where you know what you should do, but I don't want to look at my own crap behind me, because it's easier for me to look at your stuff because it's clearer, right? If I look at my stuff, I get lost and I get sad or whatever, right?
Well, that's why I tell people never hire a coach who doesn't have a coach of their own.
Oh my God, I have a coach. I can't. And somebody
too.
said this to me, but you're a business coach. And I go, I have blind spots. I go, what do you think that I have the light switch for all of my dark spots? We all need a coach, right?
Well, and sometimes I'm like, doctor, heal thyself. Because my coach will say something to me and I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, never hire a coach who doesn't have a coach. I have a coach. I have a mastermind group. I have, peers that I reach out to. I mean, if I'm not getting feedback, I'm not growing.
Yeah. And it's funny on the show, people will give me feedback after the show. I love that question. And I'm like, oh, great. Like you don't think what you're doing is good or bad or right or wrong or whatever. And when someone gives you that feedback, for me, and I always say this when I coach people, right? If evaluate whatever the situation is, this, in my case, sales calls, with you would be a coaching call, evaluate what went well during that particular situation. And then if it went really well and you thought, man, I was on the money today, duplicate those behaviors, because there's magic there. You're in your zone. The flip side, when you have those epic fails or you think, wow, that did not resonate with me, evaluate without judgment that situation with a clear mind. Was it not the right client? Were you just off that you weren't feeling well? Were you confused about what the client did? But understand where you glitched out, because you want to correct that, to put something in place the next time that happens, that you have a solution, again, to be in your zone of genius. So again, it's the discernment of, how did that go? Was it good or bad, and why? I don't think we spend enough time doing the self-evaluation.
I also think that it's possible. I agree with you. Absolutely. I think it's possible to over-evaluate. And I'll give you an example. So I run a video podcast called Quick Hits, 10-minute conversations for people, super short. And people tell me all the time, oh my goodness, you're such a great facilitator. If I start thinking about facilitating, I can't do it.
You have to be in the moment.
I have to just go with the conversation and be in it. And then it works out fine. But if I start thinking, oh, I'm expected to be a great facilitator, am I doing the facilitation? I lose track of the conversation. So allow yourself to be in your zone of genius and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, again, see that judger. We're very good at judging others and situations. And man, we're really, really good at judging ourselves, probably even the most harshly than others, right? We're really good at that. We've learned, we've perfected that skill of let's beat ourselves up. So if people listening and they're thinking, man, I like this conversation. I love that idea of creating my life, right? What are some things that you tell people to start that mindset shift?
Well, so back to the first question I asked, what does a fulfilled life look like? That's the first thing. If you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. So that's the first thing I always ask people to do. And then, and I know this is going to sound self-grandiose and I don't mean it that way, but hire a good coach. And you know what? You and I could do a whole show on how to tell the difference between a good coach and a bad coach, because, oh my goodness, there are so many horrible coaches out there.
Yes, they are.
It's impossible to get where you're going if you don't have a map, and you can't draw your own map if you don't know how to get there. And people try so hard, but find someone to have these conversations with that's not a friend or a lover or whatever, that doesn't have a vested interest and an already existing opinion. Because when someone has an opinion, they're going to tell you, and it's going to get in your brain, and you're going to get this worm in your brain from them, and you're not going to ever be able to get it out. I took me a long time to get over being told as a child, don't pat yourself on the back so hard. You're only average.
Tough, man. And yeah. The rhetoric of our parents rings in our ears very loud, or our school teachers or our grandfathers or pastors, whoever it is, right? That adult perspective we believe.
Yep. And then just go, try stuff, make it work, make it not work, learn, enjoy the process. And I know when people used to say this to me before I got to where I am now, I'd be like, this is terrible. This isn't working. This isn't fun. But the learning is the half of the battle. And if you don't learn, you're never going to get there. There is no easy button. There is no quick fix. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. Do the work.
Do the work.
That's it.
Yeah. Have you watched the show on TV, Ordinary Joe?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Fascinating. You would love it. And just I'll quickly share the perspective. And I saw him, the actor, he being interviewed, and he said something really profound. But here's the premise of the story. Ordinary Joe, they revolve around 3 lives of Joe. And it starts with, at graduation, there's 3 paths. Does he go out to dinner with his family? Does he go with his college sweetheart? Or he just met this new girl 5 minutes ago that was very exciting. Does he follow her? So 3 paths. And then they build on, if he had taken this path, what would that life look like if he went with his family, right? So he's a cop in one. The other one is he marries his high school sweetheart. She's in the legal profession and he's a nurse, and they have a child. And then in the third realm, where he goes after the new hot fling, right? He marries her. He becomes a rock star. Literally. So
String
these
really
cool, right? But 3 different jobs, different careers, different economic, different marital situations, kids, no kids. It shows these 3 paths. And when he interviewed, they said, do you draw from your own personal life? He said, yeah, each character is a little piece of me. And he goes, but this is what I love about the show. And this is what I thought was very profound. He said, I love how it illustrates that the character, right at that point, what trajectory did I choose at that moment of college graduation? And he goes, and if you notice, all 3 lives, they have pros and they also have challenges and negative things going on, or sadness or frustrations. He said, and that's what I love about the show, because no matter, we can look back and say, shoulda, woulda, coulda, doesn't matter, right? Because that trajectory, guess what? Would have had its own set of problems. He said, there's no perfect choice. There's no perfect life. And anybody who thinks that, it's dangerous to think that way, to look at others and think, well, they have the perfect life. Do they? Like a rock star. They had the money and everything, but they couldn't get pregnant. And he wanted a child. So in that life, he didn't have the child. So you see what I'm saying? And profound. I thought, oh my God, we look back on our life. I wish I had done that. What would have happened if I had done that? You would have been in a different place, perhaps, but there would have still been its own set of challenges. Really good show. Watch it. And it's entertaining as well.
We have to be careful about comparing other people's final production, like their stage show, to our backstage. Because I used to do theater, that really speaks to me. The backstage is always chaotic. Stuff isn't working. Costumes are missing. It's a complete disaster. But when you get on stage and the lights are on and everybody remembers their lines and it's great, that's what people see. And when you look at other people's lives, especially if you're only looking at it on social media, all you're seeing is their final production. You have no idea how chaotic their backstage is.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like when my kids were little to take the Christmas shot, the angst they put me through, and I was busy and they didn't want to do it. We don't want to do it. And they wouldn't smile and go to, finally I said to my husband, I'm done. I'm not sending Christmas cards out. They don't want their picture taken. I have pictures of them. Everybody that knows them knows what they look like. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I can't take on this angst every year. So I said to friends, right, they get these beautiful pictures. I go, oh, your kids are so good. My kids, they suck. And they're like, it took us 5 hours to get that shot. And I'm like, and here's what I did. I said, I'm done. And they were like, oh, that was brave. And, they can't, their family, whatever. But I giggled and I thought, it took you 5 hours to get that. I don't feel so bad because I felt like an epic failure as a mother. Why do all these other people, like their kids, they take pictures and they have Santa hats on, and my kids look like they're Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
Yep, exactly like that. And I think
paraphobia.
When people start trying to live their created life, that's what happens. They end up saying, well, other people, and they look at someone like you and I who have finally gotten, however many years, more years than we're going to admit right now that we've gone to get here. And they're like, but it works for them. It didn't always. And we just kept trying and kept breaking, and stuff didn't work, and pick it up and try it again. That's what creative lives are.
It's funny. And I know you probably get this too when I'm training and somebody says, Con, what do you say if a client says, and they give me an objection? And I pause and I think I would say, and then whatever at that moment would pop into my head. And the whole class goes, oh, you're so good at this. We're never going to get that good. Now they're 25. I'm going to be 60, right? So I go, okay. You think I came out of the womb like this? Mm-hmm. This is 35. This is 40 years of experience. If I don't have the issues, I should not be teaching you people. And they giggle and they go, and I go, the first time I got an objection, you know what came out of my mouth? Humada, humada, humada. I didn't know what to say. And then I learned and experimented, and they were like, oh, people think that we arrived here. That's so well said. It's a lot of reiteration, play, failure, success, right? And people stepping up to help and whatever. It's a journey, man. And it's a fun journey if you make it so, right?
I used to get the same thing when I played competitive beach volleyball. Like, people would say, oh, Maya, you're so good. Do you know how much time I spend? Like, you see one weekend worth of competitive play. You don't see the hours in the gym and the hours I spend on the court and all the years that I spent being an athlete trying to get here. And I never was, Olympic level, but people used to say that, oh, you're so good. I worked my tush off, and I wasn't still as good as I wished I was.
Yeah, it's funny. My nephew recently married, and the young lady he married, we love her, Jordan, and they're beautiful. He runs a Burn, it's called, out here in Princeton in New Jersey, and he runs that whole program to get people fit and healthy and nutrition. And he's masters. I mean, he's brilliant. And she's a school teacher, but she loves working out, and she has played competitive volleyball all through college, and she coaches the girls volleyball team at her school. So we had a wedding that we went to, and she had a beautiful dress, slender. She's freaking gorgeous, right? Off the charts, 10 out of 10 from just beauty inside and out, beautiful body. And so I looked at her and I said, okay, so I'm really proud of your body for you, but for me to attain that, way too much work.
At least it's work, and you didn't think she got it by magic.
No, she is unbelievable. Like, after work, she'll go out in the backyard and do lunges across the like you said, you don't get a body, you don't become the athlete. She wasn't the athlete that she was by sitting around. Perfected, right? And effort, It takes effort. And that's the same thing with life. It takes effort. You don't create a life by sitting around. That's not the way life is. You really don't. But again, choice, no judgment. We
Nope.
got to choose. So everybody, I always need more Dr. Robin in my life. I think you all need more Dr. Robin in your life. So first, if you have a question direct, I highly recommend emailing her, and it's Doc Robin, and it's DocRobyn, Robin with a Y, at champperformance.com. And if you go to chanceperformance.com, that'll take you to Dr. Robin Odegaard. That'll take you to drrobinodegaard.com as well, but it's champperformance.com. I will put all of that in the show notes. Please check out her remarkable stuff on her website. And seriously, if you have a question, you're not sure if you're ready to transition over to the created life that you desire, have a conversation. Robin's amazing. She's wonderful to chat with.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if they want to find quick hits, they can go on YouTube and just search Dr. Robin. It'll pop right up.
I love that. And talk about the quick hits. I haven't been on yet because my schedule hasn't allowed, but the premise of it is...
So the premise of Quick Hits was, because of COVID, I was intellectually lonely. I just missed having interesting conversations with people. And I just thought, you know what if I could get 3 other people on a Zoom call for 10 minutes to talk about a topic? So it's 4 people, 10 minutes, 1 topic. And we just talk about the human condition, basically. And they're just a lot of fun. I enjoy them. It's a networking opportunity for people because they get to meet other people. And yeah, people comment on them. They say they're fun to listen to. So literally, they're supposed to be fun conversations that are intellectually stimulating, twist your brain, change your mind, give me a new perspective.
Love it. And they're 10 minutes, guys. So really check that out. And that YouTube link is on the website too, Robin?
Oh yeah, they can get to it from there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you will see me on it soon. I get the email. My schedule has, I know I want to come on. I love hanging out with you. Right. and the cool thing about the quick tips is the quick hits is it's 10 minutes, which is really easy to listen to. But I love that it's fun and intellectual conversation, because sometimes somebody just says something as a one-off. And I know this has happened to me, and I know it's happened to you, where somebody said something as a one-off and you think, woo, I have to think about that. Let me research that. What book was that? I have to read that book. So that's how we learn and expand by resonating with a conversation. So 10 minutes, everybody's got 10 minutes to tune in and check it out. So yeah,
if
everybody
you watch it on YouTube, you can just put it on faster speed. You can listen even faster.
I love it. You see people going like this, right? Is the
I mean, and I also strip the audio and put it on a podcast too, so people can search it on wherever they listen to their podcast.
As you're going for a walk.
Yeah,
as you're going for a walk. I love it. Thank you, Robin, so much for being on. Thank you for sharing the non-judgment zone. Create the life you desire, not what someone else thinks you should be doing, right? That's another whole topic, right? Parents guiding kids, let kids make their choices. We could guide them, but they still have to find their soul's purpose, right? And their created life. So thank you again. Always just great conversation. A true pleasure. So, and just have a wonderful holiday season.
Oh, thanks, Connie. You too.
Yeah, pleasure. And I hope you will all join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that growing and living through challenge or navigating through challenge might be easier than you think. I'm not saying it's always easy, but sometimes the conversations that my guests and I have provide that catalyst or that shift in perspective that put you on the new trajectory of creating the life you desire. So I hope you found today's conversation certainly helpful. I will put the show notes, the website, and Dr. Robin's email. And again, take one of the tips that either I shared or Dr. Robin shared. And it's not about learning or hearing information. It's about applying a thought, one idea, apply it. And I promise you the result will be magical and change the trajectory of your life, where you're in a position of choice, that you're creating and developing the life that you desire. And we all deserve that. We all deserve to be. And I love your question, Robin, about what brings you joy. And I think if we start there, the world can change. So again, Robin, thank you so much for being on. Truly, truly fun. You've all been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I am truly honored to have you on this journey with me. And I do hope that the value you get from listening every week helps you on your journey of change. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Robin. We'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.